You got to talk about Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, look, I think it's simple, man. Lamar Jackson is a rock star, but the offense that he's been playing in the last 3-4 years with Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator, I always said this, that doesn't fit him, right? It fits him because he has to be Superman, right? He has to make 5 people miss. But Lamar Jackson needs a number 1 receiver. Lamar Jackson needs help, right? Lamar Jackson, they haven't given Lamar Jackson the opportunity to really throw the ball downfield. Like, let this guy do what I think he does very well.
You don't think they were trying to do that maybe last year and this year, and then the injuries, slowed that progress
I get it.
down?
I understand the injuries, Phil, but I'm just telling you, when you have a player that dynamic, Patrick Mahomes is surrounded around nothing but help. Lamar, we got Mark Andrews, we got a couple of other guys, but we need pieces around Lamar Jackson to help Lamar Jackson.
Oh my, listen, life is good. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause. Round of applause. My goodness. My goodness. My goodness. Let's go. Pop, listen, it's a celebration of life. Oh my good, life is good. My goodness. Vindication is the word of the year. I repeat, vindication is the word of the year. Y'all saw that clip I just put, y'all saw the clip I just put up there. We just saw the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the greatest linebacker of all time, the greatest Ravens player of all time. With all due respect to Ray Lewis, with all due respect to Ed Reed, Haloti Ngata, Terrell Suggs, Elvis Dumervil, the list goes on and on. Goose, everybody. Listen, with all due respect to everybody, the greatest Raven of all time has spoken. And guess what? The greatest Raven of all time does not agree with those gatekeepers. Those gatekeepers who keep trying to, despite all the evidence showing them otherwise, they're still trying to push this narrative that all you need is just defense and you can just ride your way to a Super Bowl in 2023. He just shut all of you down, and he wasn't even trying. He wasn't even trying to be mean. He wasn't even trying to be disrespectful. He was just calling it like it is. Listen, this is sweet poetic justice. The optics of this is just beautiful. Beautiful. You have a bunch of gatekeepers within the Ravens flock who keep trying to push this idea that we need to keep focusing on defense this, defense that. We don't need so I've even seen some people crazy enough to say, we don't need Lamar, we won with Trent Dilfer, all this nonsense. Listen, and here you have one of those guys from that defense, one of those guys from that 2000s Ravens defense that we all remember. Not just any old guy, the most infamous of them all. The most infamous player from that 2000s Ravens defense has come out and has straight up said, hey, listen, Lamar needs help. You have to get him receivers. Ray Lewis, of all people, said that. Let that sink in. It's a beautiful moment. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. You have a bunch of people who are still trying to focus on solely defense as if that's all that matters. And yet you have a defensive player who everybody respects. You're crazy if you don't respect Ray Lewis as a player, considering what he did as a player. And he just told you, hey, Lamar needs help. How many times do we have to tell you? And another thing that was so beautiful about that clip, I think it was from like some Paramount show, whatever. I don't know. Like, I don't have Paramount. Like, I don't care about like most of those streaming services. But still, another part of that clip that was so important was he, in a very polite way, what he just told everybody was, hey, Greg Roman, and I'm not going to go too hard on Greg Roman. He's gone now. But still, this point has to be made. Ray Lewis just said straight up, these coaches, they were holding Lamar back. He didn't say it exactly like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he's implying, obviously. He's saying that himself, he's saying, hey, listen, the whole time I've been saying this isn't the right offense to have Lamar in. And that's what people like me have been saying. He wasn't with Greg Roman in Louisville, and he did just fine in Louisville. Lamar Jackson is not some guy that you got to keep in one solid offense. As a matter of fine, listen, even with stuff like this, people are going to act like Ray Lewis just said something brand new that nobody else has been saying, but many of us have been saying this. Listen, matter of fact, I gotta do this. Y'all know where I'm going with this. Previously on Ravens Over Everything. The biggest lie in the NFL right now is this narrative that the Baltimore Ravens built this offense around Lamar Jackson. That's not true. In reality, they built this offense around their stubborn and outdated ideology of wanting to run the ball and play hard-nosed defense. The fact that Lamar Jackson is a dual-threat quarterback who is very elite at running makes him an easy scapegoat. In reality, Lamar Jackson is one of the more efficient quarterbacks throwing the ball in the NFL, and anybody who actually watches Ravens games knows that. Before he got injured last year, he was leading the league in 40-yard passes, yards per attempt, and yards per completion. But yet, people still want to pretend like in order to build a team around him, you have to surround him with a bunch of fullbacks, running backs, and tight ends. No, in reality, if they really wanted to build a team around him, they should have been spending the past 5 years getting him weapons. So here we are, vindicated again. And again, this doesn't make me or anybody else a genius for calling this out, but this just makes us people who were objectively judging the offense that the Ravens had and just calling it like it is. Again, not when I make these statements saying, "Oh, our offense is garbage," I'm not saying that because I want to say that. I'm saying that because that's just what it is. That's just the reality of the situation. We have practice squad guys playing receiver. We have a freaking fullback out here lining up outside, running routes as if he's a receiver. We had a very limited offensive coordinator. We had a head coach who doesn't have a background in offense, who really doesn't know what he's doing on that side. And again, that it doesn't mean that a head coach who isn't offense first can't thrive. But again, I did a video the other day pointing out the fact that when you look at all the remaining head coaches in the playoffs right now, they're all offense guys. You look around, like I said, it's a bunch of offensive guys taking over the NFL. And again, like I said a while back in my video about why the 2000s Ravens defense is never going to come back, part of the reason for that is because the referees, they throw flags out for anything and everything now. If you make eye contact with somebody for too long, you could get a flag. And y'all really want to hold on to this fantasy that, we're going to reinvent the 2000s Ravens defense? They're not going to allow a defense that tough to ever exist again. It's just not going to happen. And again, that doesn't mean I'm saying that, defense doesn't matter at all. But defense is a secondary type of priority in this day and age. In 2023, you need to prioritize offense first, especially when you have a once-in-a-generation quarterback like Lamar Jackson. You have to prioritize getting him help over everything else. Because as you saw last year and as you saw at the end of this year, the defense, despite how good or bad they played, the defense can't win you games. In the case of last year, the defense was just so bad that they couldn't win. It didn't matter. They were so bad that we was losing games regardless, and we couldn't. Well, we scored a little bit, but still, we couldn't have the same knockout punch without Lamar. And then this year, the defense played much better. Of course, this year there wasn't as many injuries on that side of the ball too, but still, the defense played much better this year. But guess what? At the end of the day, it still wasn't good enough to help us win games. Why? Because we can't score. We gotta go get weapons. See, and one thing that I like to do, from time to time, that I think a lot of Ravens fans should do more is I'll listen to podcasts from other sports teams, from fans of other sports teams. Like, instead of just sticking to like Ravens content, sometimes I'll go listen to podcasts from like people who are like Colts fans, Falcons fans, Saints fans, Raiders fans, Jets fans, Bills fans, like all over the place. Like, I'll actually go out and listen to a bunch of these different podcasts from people who are fans of all these different teams, just to, get their insight on what's going on with their team, obviously, because I can't pay attention to all those different teams myself. So to get their insight on their teams in case we got to play them, or just out of curiosity, but then also to see how do they feel about us sometimes. Not because I care, but because I am sort of curious, like how are we seen, right? Because we're too biased to know how people see us. Like, we really are. Like, you talk to a lot of Ravens fans, they think the Ravens are like the greatest franchise of all time. But let's call it for what it is. Like, in the past 23 years since this century started, we've won 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's good, but that's not, anything spectacular. Look, you talk to Buccaneers fans, they're not going to be impressed, because even though they've had one of the worst records since 2000s, they still have won 2 Super Bowls in the same time span as us. Same thing with the Giants. They've won 2 Super Bowls in the same time as us. Same thing with the Steelers. In this century, they've won 2 Super Bowls just like us. You Patriots fans, they really don't care, because from their perspective, they think they got the greatest of all time, because they went to freaking 13 AFC Championship games, 9 Super Bowls, and they won 6 of them. So, I definitely tune into other podcasts to hear their perspective on their teams, and also hear what they have to say about the Ravens from time to time, to try to stay humble and see from a different side of the fence how we are seen. And one thing I noticed, no matter who you go to, our receivers are the laughing stock of the NFL. I don't know if people understand that. Like, everybody except the Ravens fans know that this offense is garbage. Everybody knows. Everybody. They know these receivers aren't good. Everybody knows. I've talked to Saints fans. They know they trash. They know the receivers here are trash. I've talked to Panthers fans. They know the receivers here are trash. I've talked to any fan. I've talked to Rams fans, whoever, Seahawks fans. There's only a certain section of the Ravens flock that still haven't fully accepted the fact that you can't. It's not that you can't go far with these guys, but it's just you're making it much harder than it has to be. Because essentially, that every game that we play with the offense that we've had over the past several seasons, since Lamar's come here, every game we play, you're essentially fighting with one hand behind your back. Like, we keep fighting with one hand behind our back for no reason. You go look at these other teams like the Chiefs. Listen, the Chiefs, we all know how elite their passing game has been. That's another point that Ray Lewis made in that video. He was saying that when you look at like Patrick Mahomes' situation, Patrick Mahomes is surrounded by weapons. And, I know some of you may not be too fond of the guys in Kansas City right now, but look at it like this. Yeah, they got rid of their number one, Tyreek Hill. They got rid of their number one receiver. But still, on top of the fact that they have the best tight end in the NFL, and arguably the best tight end of all time, on top of that, they went out of their way to at least surround Patrick with a bunch of number 2s. A bunch. Even if you want to say, oh, they're not all that, they're better than what we got. That's a fact. Like, they surrounded him with a bunch of number 2s who can make plays. You look around at what Patrick got: Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Mecole Hardman still over there. So even if you don't view those guys as top tier guys, those are still guys who at their best could be really solid number 2s, and they're everywhere. They just drafted Sky Moore. He's over there. Like, they're everywhere. Whereas you look at the Ravens, we don't even have receivers who can compete with that. And not, and on top of that, they also have better coaching over there. They have a more competent offensive coordinator who's actually creative. But then at the same time, They've had a good enough defense. Their defense hasn't been anything special in the past several years, but guess what? They had very valuable pieces on their defense like Chris Jones. They can make plays when necessary and get stops when necessary. And then on top of that, even though they haven't had much of a running game since they traded Kareem Hunt. But guess what? Now all of a sudden you're looking at that young guy. I think his name is Pacheco. He's over here playing like he might be their future. And don't let the Chiefs develop a serious running game. It's gonna be a nightmare for 95% of the NFL at that point. When you look around, a bunch of these teams, they're prioritizing getting their franchise. If they have a franchise quarterback, they're prioritizing getting him weapons. I mean, shoot, even teams that don't necessarily have a franchise quarterback, they still getting their guys weapons. You know, like Jared Goff isn't that great, obviously, but guess what? The Lions still put him in a good situation offensively. Their defense is struggling, but offensively, he's surrounded by he has a lot of firepower over there in Detroit. Even when you look at the Dolphins, right? Like, you know, Tua's solid QB, but a lot of people were talking about him as if he was a non-factor. He wasn't really that good, but then all of a sudden they went out of their way to get him weapons. And prior to the whole, all those concussions and stuff, he was in the MVP conversation. So this matters, man. You gotta go out there and get weapons, man. Even in the next couple videos I'm about to do, I want to just start focusing on some guys who I think the Ravens should like take a look at. Not in the draft necessarily. I'm talking about like guys in like free agency or guys who could be traded. Not saying it's gonna happen, but I'm just saying I'm just gonna start playing with my imagination with some of these videos. Just because I want to keep pushing that point across that we need help at receiver. Listen, our defense is fine. Even if a couple guys from the defense leave, this defense is just fine. We have a very special running back in J.K. Dobbins. We have a good backup running back in Gus Edwards. I mean, Gus might leave, to be honest with you. But even if Gus leaves, Justice Hill is still there, and maybe they go draft another guy who has potential further down the line. But either way, the running attack is just fine. The biggest handicap this team has been dealing with has been receiver and coaching. My bad, receiver and coaching. But still, they got rid of one of the coaches. Hopefully, they get rid of the other one. You know who. And if you bring in receivers, even if they don't give it a Harbaugh, even though I want them to, even if they don't give it a Harbaugh, at least put Lamar in a situation where he's set up to win and not fighting with one hand behind his back. That way, hey, if Lamar can get this far with minimal help offensively, why is it taking the Ravens so long to accept the fact that it would be in your best interest to put weapons around him so he could reach his full potential as a quarterback? The Eagles did the right thing. Just like I said in the last video, the Eagles did the right thing. They actually prioritized getting weapons for their guy. And now look, Jalen Hurts is in the MVP conversation. He's in the NFC Championship game. He has a strong chance of winning that NFC Championship game and going to the Super Bowl now. Whereas you look at the Ravens, like at this moment, they're going nowhere fast unless they actually make that change in their philosophy and prioritize offense. And they're especially going nowhere fast if they try to trade Lamar and just try to rebuild. At that point, we'd be screwed. But again, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below.